And welcome to episode 14 of RaiderZone Podcast. I'm Wilbur Yanza, your host. Alongside me, Jacob Utah, Brendan Deviney, and possibly Riley Sullivan, joining us a little bit later in the show as we talk all things sports. We'll talk about the Super Bowl later in the show as football departs from our topic of conversation for a couple months, and then the draft comes around, so we'll be right back before we know it. But not much to talk about, as now it's basketball and baseball's turn. Basketball in full swing, and baseball just about to start as spring training's right around the corner. And that's what we're going to start with today. We're going to start with baseball as free agency is still going on. We've noticed this a lot lately. Free agent signing later than usual. Back when we were kids, it's like all the big names signed a week after the season started, and now you have to wait till February to see who's on everybody's roster. We still have a few big names out there, but we'll start off with a very big name, the top pitcher in free agency. Trevor Bauer signs a 3-year, $102 million deal with the Dodgers with opt-out options after each season. He'll be making $40 million in year one, $45 million in year two. Brendan, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the signing, and does it show how bad baseball needs a cap?
Well, I mean, this is kind of what Trevor Bauer said a few years ago, that when he first left Cleveland, that his plan was to be in control of his contract every year so that he can re-sign every year and see if he wants to move to a different team and get as much money out of his free agency as possible. And that's what he's doing here with the Dodgers. Saw an opening to go to the World Champs. And that's where he wants to be. He fits that LA lifestyle, I think. Going to add to a stacked starting lineup with Clayton Kershaw and David Price, among others. I mean, he's a great fit for the Dodgers. Now, as far as the money goes, we've talked about this before. We talked about it with Nolan Arenado going to the Cardinals. These major markets and star players, marquee players, making boatloads of money that smaller markets can't give the players. If baseball had a cap, Cincinnati probably would be in a good position to re-sign him. I mean, the Reds, when you think about it, never even got like a full year out of Trevor Bauer. They signed him in 2019 and only got him for like the last half of the year. Didn't make the playoffs. Then they got him for a shortened 2020 season when they did make the playoffs but got bounced in the wild card round. So they never even got, full Trevor Bauer. Yeah, he won the Cy Young, but they didn't get what they really were wanting to get out of him. They didn't get a full season out of him. Now he's going to go play for the World Champs, get a full season in a Dodgers uniform, and it's perfect for him and LA, making life hell for the rest of the National League and everyone else who wanted to try and buy in to get Trevor Bauer. It's what happened with Corey Kluber in Cleveland, his former teammate. Just could not hold on to him. The smaller market teams like the Reds, they finally get a Cy Young player and they can't hold on to him. It's really a sad reality for the sport of baseball.
Jacob, your thoughts on the signing, and does it show how bad baseball needs a cap?
Well, Brendan basically covered all my main points for me, but yeah, I mean, it's a perfect signing for Trevor Bauer and the Dodgers. He gets to go to the World Champions, gets to control his own destiny as far as his contract goes, since he can opt out after every single season. He's definitely in the best position he's ever been in to win a World Series, and I really don't see how the Dodgers don't at least get back to the World Series with this move, because it's just incredible to think of all the pitchers that they have there, like Brendan was touching on earlier. But it's just a horrible look for baseball, because this is where it just doesn't make sense. The Dodgers already had historically one of the largest payrolls in the history of the game, and then they're able to sign Trevor Bauer for $45 million this year. And then you got teams out there like Cleveland, like Colorado, like Cincinnati, that they had no shot at Trevor Bauer really, just because that cap is it's just uncontrollable right now for MLB. So MLB really needs to put cap space in there, it would really level out the playing field, because the way I look at it, the Dodgers are just incredibly loaded right now. And talent-wise, you can't tell me right now that there's not a more talented team on paper than the defending world champions right now, especially after adding Trevor Bauer. So really, I think just to even out the playing field and make it fair for everybody, you should definitely put a cap rule in there, because right now it's just flat out unfair to some of these smaller market teams.
Yeah, and it's funny, you talked about the $40 million. Speaking of the old team, the Indians as well, the Indians' payroll is $32 million, so Bauer's making $8 million more than a whole roster in the MLB right now, and that just goes to show how broken it is, the system that baseball is running through. And it's not just the salary cap that needs changed. It's a lot of things in the sport of baseball. We talked about in our group chat that of the 4 rule changes last year for the shortened season, they're keeping the 2 that nobody wanted, but not keeping the 2 that everybody wanted. They're keeping the extra innings rules, but they're going away with the expanded playoffs and the DH in the National League, the 2 rules that everybody was okay with staying around. So if I'm Manfred, I'm sitting down and I'm like, I know what everybody thinks about me, and changes need to be made. And we talked about last week too. The voting for the Hall of Fame is broken. I mean, baseball's just not in a good position right now, in my opinion.
Well, they really need to go and just listen to the fans.
Yeah.
What the NBA and NFL does incredibly well is take input from their fans and makes it a reality. Like what and the NBA did with the All-Star game for the past few seasons. Not doing East and West, but doing player voting. Like have 2 captains like Giannis and LeBron, and they select the All-Star teams. Like what the NBA and NFL have done is just attract more fans, make it fan friendly, and make it enjoyable to watch. Like what MLB is doing, they're stubborn. They're trying to stick to old ways because that's what they think is best for the sport. When in reality, most of the time, fans know what they want for the sport because they're the ones who are watching it.
Yeah.
Like they're the ones that you need to try and keep watching these games and going to these games. It's just like they're looking through a tunnel that only they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that too, because really, like, I'm a casual baseball fan. Like, I'll watch it. I know the guys pretty well, but I'm not like a diehard baseball fan. But when they implemented those 8 teams in the playoffs this year, I mean, that was just so exciting to watch the end of the regular season, them all fight it out. And then you come to the playoffs, and, I mean, the Marlins coming out of nowhere and knocking out the Cubs. It was just so exciting to watch the playoffs the way they were. And then to really just hear that baseball says, oh, yeah, you fans, like, you really like seeing the ending of the season and you really like the playoff format. We're just not going to do that. We're just going to put in the rules that you guys couldn't stand. I mean, like how Brendan said, it's just sticking to old traditions right now that's just not working out, and they just need to stop being stubborn and really just get over it.
And then now there's the breaking news that they're trying to fix the ball so they don't fly as far. And I'm like, home runs are the only thing keeping you guys afloat, and you're trying to take those away now. I don't get it. I mean, I had a choice between home run derby and all-star game, and I picked home run derby because who doesn't like to see moonshots? And now everybody's trying to take away moonshots. So.
And then they tried to instill something new and exciting that they think is new and exciting by putting a runner on second at the start of extra inning games. Like, that's not baseball. No other level of baseball does that except the top level in the world.
Like, I don't like that, too, in the sense...
You don't do that in Little League. You don't do that in high school.
Yeah. And you're screwing over pitchers in that situation. A guy can lose but not give up an earned run. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And we saw it a lot last year. A lot of guys lose without giving up an earned run. But
like, I know you want to try and shorten these games, but that's not exciting. Like, it doesn't give you a real way to rally. Like, you don't get that runner on first and then get him home. Like, that's not baseball.
Yeah, like, depending on who you have on second, I mean, you can literally hit a shallow, single in the left field or something, and you got a guy coming home and the game's already over. I mean, it's just stupid.
And then we saw a lot.
Second base
they'd get bunt over and suicide squeeze, so it literally takes 2 nice bunts and you got to run,
Yeah, it's just crazy.
But we'll keep going. Marcell Ozuna, slugger that doesn't like the news probably of baseball as being unjuiced, but he signs a 4-year extension with the Braves worth $64 million. Jacob, I'll start with you. How big is keeping this bat for the Braves, especially since that NL East just seems to get harder and harder with the teams adding players?
Yeah, this is a huge bat, really, to remain in Atlanta, because personally, I did not see how the Braves were really going to bring him back, because I thought that his value was going to be incredibly high and other teams were going to go after him. But yeah, like how you touched on, Will, I mean, the Mets, they've added everything. I think the Mets are incredibly strong, and we'll talk about them later. But the Braves, this is crucial for them to be able to compete with the Mets in the NL East. And yeah, like the Phillies, they've reloaded with all of their guys returning for the most part. And then you have the Nationals in there. They might have a bounce-back season. You never know with the Marlins, too. They're just in my opinion, right now, the toughest division in baseball. So you need all the help that you can possibly get. And Marcell Ozuna was without a doubt, one of the best hitters on the Braves last season, probably just second to Freddie Freeman, honestly. So really, this move just helps them stay in contention in the NL East. Don't know if it has them winning the NL East. I mean, obviously, to me, they're one of my two favorites to win the NL East. But, yeah, it's crucial for them to remain in the playoff hunt by keeping Marcell Ozuna.
I agree. Brendan, your thoughts on the big bat staying in Atlanta?
Yeah, there were so many times last year, 2020, where Ozuna would just come up and, like, Braves are down 3-1, hits a 2-run homer in, like, the 9th inning. And then he's their clutch bat.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. A huge bat in that lineup. It helps keep the lineup leveled. He's a guy where you get a couple runners on and he'll bring them home. A huge clutch bat in that lineup, and that's why the Braves are like I want them to be my favorite team in the National League. It's either them or the Padres, who are the two most exciting teams to watch in baseball right now. I know the Dodgers are stacked, but when you talk about energy and life in that lineup, exciting baseball to watch, those are the two teams. So I'm really excited to see them battle it out. Would not be surprised if those two teams play in the NLDS for a chance to get to the NLCS against Dodgers. So Marcell Ozuna staying around, that's huge for Atlanta to try and give them another shot this year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Jacob said. A lot of people don't realize that Ozuna was the second most productive player in that lineup last year, because you see names like Acuna and Albies and other big names kind of shine them over him, the young guys, and a lot of people don't realize Ozuna was just as big of a part in getting the Braves where they were last season, and to keep a big bat like that, I think, is huge. As we have Riley joining us now. What's up, Riley?
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry for joining so late. My computer crashed, and then I ended up having someone come and have a pretty good conversation with me. But I'm here now, better late than never, and I'm really happy to be joining you guys again.
It's all good. We're glad to have you. I know you're not a big fan of baseball, so we're just going to wrap up MLB and college basketball, and then we'll bring you in for the NBA.
Sounds good, guys. I'm excited to hop in the convo.
Sounds good. So that'll take us to our next signing, Yadier Molina. He signs a 1-year extension with the Cardinals worth $9 million. I was kind of shocked to see the $9 million number. Guy getting up there in age, but he's still getting paid, that's for sure. Brendan, are you surprised to see this, or did you expect him to finish in St. Louis, sign again, and probably end up finishing his career here?
Yeah, no, he's behind Albert Pujols. He's Mr. Cardinal. He's St. Louis. That uniform is the only uniform that I will ever picture him in, and it looks like it's going to stay that way. Still is able to contribute in a major way. Still able to put up those numbers, the RBIs, the home runs. Put in a good effort in that lineup and contribute in a major way. The Cardinals definitely a favorite to win the NL pennant this year. I think they're an underrated favorite. Just getting Nolan Arenado, they do have a strong lineup. Didn't really get to see him fully this year. I think the 60 games kind of hindered them because I think they were getting into their stride a little late in the season. And then they just could not put everything together fast enough to win in the postseason. But again, he's going to stay there, a Cardinal for life. He'll retire there. I mean, he'll have a retirement tour one of these next few seasons, because I don't see him staying around too long anymore. But St. Louis Hall of Famer, MLB Hall of Famer, for sure.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Cardinal. There, you probably will get a statue at some point too. 9 Gold Gloves. That's a number unheard of a lot, and he didn't always put up the biggest numbers in batting, but he always contributed in the big way throughout the. As far as I wouldn't say like when he was younger, he put up bigger numbers batting, but he's very clutch still. It seems like when he hits that ball, when he goes deep, it's usually in a big situation. But that glove still flashing the leather, that's for sure. Jacob, your thoughts on Yachty staying in St. Louis?
Yeah, I never thought that Yachty was going to leave St. Louis either, personally, just because he is Mr. Cardinal. He's one of the greatest defensive catchers, really, in the game of baseball that we might have ever seen. And, yeah, I just can't picture him in a uniform other than St. Louis. And really, too, another reason, because he's about to be 38 years old, or he might already be 38 years old. So, really, who's going to invest $9 or $10 million in Yadier Molina, who is still a great catcher, but I don't know if I'd be willing to invest that much money if he wasn't already on my team for what seems like forever, like how he has been with St. Louis. So it was really just a loyalty thing. I never thought that Yachty was ever going to leave. And it was also the fact, just his age, I didn't really think any teams would be willing to throw that amount of money out at him. But it's a great signing for the Cardinals, and they should most likely probably contend in the NL Central next year.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. It's going to be interesting to see what he does production-wise. Will he platoon since he's getting up there in age, or will he be the everyday catcher? We'll see. When you're paying a guy $9 million, you'd like to think they're an everyday player, but we'll see as we get into the season. Last big signing from this last week, Jonathan VR signs a 1-year deal with the Mets worth $3.5 million. Rumors are the Mets are still pursuing Justin Turner at third base. Right now, this would be their positioning: catcher James McCann, first base Pete Alonso, second base Jonathan VR, third base J.D. Davis, maybe Justin Turner, shortstop Francisco Lindor, and the outfield would be Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, Michael Conforto. The rotations: DeGrom, Syndergaard, Stroman, Carrasco, Yamamoto, and the bullpen includes Trevor May, Seth Lugo, Brad Brock, Uris Familia, Dylan Betances, Edwin Diaz. Guys, Brendan, I'll start with you. Thoughts on this Mets team going into 2021? All of a sudden, they look like one of the best teams on paper, and a lot of people don't even realize that.
They're a dangerous team, and that is their why the National League is, again, a favorite to win the World Series. They're just a stacked half of the league. Up and down. Like, there's no one not to like. There's no one not to want to have on your team. Like, I would take this team in a heartbeat. Like, they're so stacked. It's not even funny. Like, they are, like, if they're coming to town, like, you're gonna want to go watch them. Mm-hmm. Like, even if your team is in last place, like, you're gonna go want to watch the Mets. Like, they're that team this year. Like, watch out. They're going to try and ruin all the fun this year in the National League. They have the ability to pull an upset in the postseason when they make it. They're making the postseason. It's not like they're not going to play in October this year. They're going to try and spoil the party, knock off San Diego, knock off LA, knock off Atlanta, or someone like that. Because they're going to be a fun team to watch. I feel like this team is going to come together so quickly, and they're going to get hot early, and they're going to know that they're hot and act like it. This is a fun – all these guys are just fun guys to watch. If they start playing cocky, like, watch out.
Jacob, your thoughts on the 2021 Mets coming into the season?
Well, they're definitely making the playoffs, but I'm going to go as far as saying if they stay healthy, they're going to win the division. I personally think that, because really I did not notice just how much talent they've acquired over these past couple seasons, and really obviously this offseason too, until I actually saw the roster like right in front of me. Just crazy to think. I think this is a great deep lineup offensively, but really from a pitching standpoint, that's what stands out to me too, because you have a Cy Young winner in Jacob DeGrom, Noah Syndergaard whenever he's healthy. He's always been a great pitcher too. Marcus Stroman, he's been good at times. We all know what Carlos Carrasco can do. I mean, this is just a deep rotation too, to add on with guys like Francisco Lindor, Jonathan VR, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso. I mean, I just think it's a very deep team. I think that they can compete with the Braves. Right now I'm going to go as far as saying if they're healthy, they're probably going to beat the Braves. I think that they have what it takes to potentially make the NLCS. I definitely think they're going to make the NLDS right now. But, yeah, I just love these signings that they've done. If they get Justin Turner, that's just going to be that much bigger, too, because they just got a whole lot deeper if you add Justin Turner, a player of his caliber, too. So, really, to me, it's just going to be, can they stay healthy? Because we know Syndergaard's had injury problems in the past. If they can stay healthy, they're going to be perfectly fine. They're going to make the playoffs, and I'll go as far as saying that they're going to win the division.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they're definitely my favorites for the NL East. The biggest thing with me is that rotation. It looks very good, but you have a lot of history of injury in there. Syndergaard, Carrasco, especially with the uncertainty of where cancer has him standing. Stroman's had a few injuries here and there throughout his career. But that bullpen, a lot of those players may have had a rough year in the past couple of years, but we all know the potential that they have. When I'm talking Diaz, Betances, and Familia, if those three are all in their A game this season, that bullpen's going to be one of the best in baseball, and you have Lugo, Brock, and May as well. But that lineup usually stays pretty healthy. Knocking on wood right now for the Mets since I said that, but I agree. If they stay healthy and that, in particular, that rotation stays healthy, they could definitely make a run. And maybe even win the pennant in the National League, but the Dodgers will be a tough team to get through. So now we'll move over to the AL West, I apologize, as we have a trade go down. Rangers send Elvis Andrus, who's the last guy remaining from the 2 World Series appearances they had not too long ago. They also send Aramis Garcia and $13.5 million to the A's for Chris Davis, Jonah Heim, and Dane Acker, who's a pitching prospect. Jacob, I'll start with you. Who won this trade?
Well, first off, I'm glad that you said something about the Rangers making the World Series, because that kind of actually made me feel old, because that was like one of the first World Series I can remember is when the Rangers kept going back those 2 years. It's just crazy to think that he was on those teams, because that just seems like so long ago. But definitely, I think that the A's win this trade, because really they just lost their starting shortstop to the Blue Jays and Marcus Semien, and then you come in and you add a proven veteran in Elvis Andrus. And also to add on top of that, you get rid of the horrible contract that you signed Chris Davis to. He's been very unproductive ever since he led the league in home runs. So it's just a win-win situation.
And the almost $14 million in cash that you can spend willingly on another player if you'd like.
What is going on with that? I just can't understand that at all. It's like, we'll give you our starting shortstop, and then to add on to that, we're just going to hand you some free money here, too.
And we'll take on the worst contract on your roster.
Yeah, it just does not make any sense. But, yeah, they got better from this trade, because, seriously, Chris Davis was a pretty big liability for them, just because he was not productive at all these past couple seasons for them. And then you add a guy like Elvis Andrus. He had a down season this past year, but it was a 60-game sample size, so I'm not going to hold that against him. I believe he batted under 200, but that doesn't really matter, because we've seen him in the past. We know what he's capable of. He's going to be fine in Oakland, and Oakland got better with this trade.
Yeah, and you can't say anything about, like you said, the 60 to 100 is where you start to see things really settle in, and only getting 60 games, you can't catch your stride if you have that 2-month cold streak to start. So no blame there on Andrus. Still played very well defensively, and like you said, a veteran for that A's team that made the playoffs last year. So, Brendan, your thoughts?
I agree with Jacob. Oakland definitely won this trade. You bring in Andrus to put him at short. Garcia is now going to be a solid backup catcher to Murphy. And you still have a pretty decent start of the lineup with Laureano, Kana, Chapman. I really like their infield with Olsen at first, Chapman at third, Andrus at short now, and then still have Kemp over at second base. This team is still a team that is capable of making the postseason every year. I feel like they have been making the postseason every year. They're just never able to get over the hump and make a postseason run. It's not going to change that. This team is still not going to win in the postseason this year. But looking at this trade, they definitely benefited from it and continued to add some offense to that lineup that they desperately need.
Yeah, I agree with both your guys' takes. whenever you lose a guy like Simeon to get a replacement like Andrews, usually you'd probably think you're dreaming at that point. So A's definitely win this trade, and they can use that $14 million or $13.5 million to maybe add another player to a one-year contract or something. But I agree, A's win this trade. Interesting to see what the Rangers are doing, because they're wasting talent of a couple young guys. Joey Gallo is one of them, and it's not looking good for them. But that is it for baseball. As we move on to basketball now, we'll start with college hoops. And we're going to talk a little bit about bracketology, as we're just over a month away from March Madness. The first March Madness in, 2 years? We didn't have one last year, so really a sad year last year. Right there, everybody was filling their brackets out, and they called it. So this is what bracketology is saying right now in Region 1. 1 through 16 goes Gonzaga, Alabama, Texas, Iowa, Florida State, Virginia Tech, UCLA, Oklahoma State, San Diego State, Seton Hall, Drake, Belmont, UAB, Siena, Northeastern, and then Fairleigh Dickinson and NCAA playing for that 16 seed. In Region 2, we got Baylor, Illinois, Missouri, USC, Purdue, Creighton, Louisville, Loyola, Chicago, Minnesota, LSU, Boise State, Utah State, Winthrop, Grand Canyon, Cleveland State, and then South Dakota and Prairie View A&M playing for that 16 seed. In Region 3, Michigan, Houston, Texas Tech, Tennessee, West Virginia, Rutgers, Florida, Xavier, BYU, North Carolina, Stanford, UConn playing in for the 11th seed, and then Toledo, Wofford, UC Irvine, UMBC, we all know, upset Virginia a few years back. They're back in bracketology, and then Sam Houston State rounding things out there. And in Region 4, the Buckeyes of Ohio State as the 1 seed, followed by Villanova, Virginia, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Kansas, Colorado, Clemson, Arkansas, Indiana, St. Bonaventure, Oregon and VCU for the 11th seed, and then Liberty, Navy, Eastern Washington, and Texas State. Jacob, I'll start with you. Thoughts on the bracket predictions thus far with a little over a month left? Who was kind of a surprise where they're at? And who did you kind of see? Obviously, I think we'll all agree Gonzaga, Baylor, 1 seeds, but anything that caught your eye?
Yeah, so really looking at this, I would say I agree with most of it right now, but the top seeds, I'm going to say, like how you said, Gonzaga and Baylor, they're locks. The other two, I'm not so sure about. I think one of those two, or whoever wins the Big Ten, is ultimately going to get a number 1 seed, because you never know. Illinois or Iowa can come out, and they, in my opinion, will be worthy of a 1 seed, because that's just how good the Big Ten has been. So really, I'm going to say whoever wins the Big Ten. And the only reason I say that is because you look at Alabama and Missouri in the SEC, they've played very strong. So I think who can ever win that conference might have a shot. And also, too, Villanova has been strong all year, too. If they win out and they win the Big East, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be a 1 seed, too. So I just think for that reason, it's going to be just one Big Ten squad. And really, too, just talking about the Big Ten, I'm also going to throw the Big 12 in here in discussion, too. I personally think that over half of the top 4 seeds are going to be given to either a Big 12 or a Big 10 team, because I have down right now from the Big 12, I'd put Baylor, Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, Texas Tech. Those guys would all be top 4 seeds to me. And then the Big 10, Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois, Iowa. I just think that the Big 10 and the Big 12 are going to dominate the top part of the brackets. And I think it's going to be very exciting to see all those guys hopefully duke it out too at some point, because I love upsets, but I also love seeing some big-time basketball programs going up against each other in the tournament. So it's going to be a very exciting time. It just feels so weird not having March Madness last year, and to have it come back and with so many good teams, and really there's 2 great teams and then there's a lot of really, really good teams. It's just going to be exciting to watch them all battle it out in the tournament.
Yeah, I liked your point on the Big 10, Big 12. I agree, taking up the top 4 spots, a lot of them. Iowa, though, if they win the Big Ten, that might be the only way a Big Ten is left out of a 1 seed, just because they've kind of been slacking lately. They have a 4 seed right now. But I do agree, if Ohio State, Michigan, or Illinois, if one of those 3 win the Big Ten, you're going to see a Big Ten team as a 1 seed. But Ohio State, Michigan, both playing very good basketball. Ohio State, especially, new coach and missing one of their better players who just came back, playing really good basketball. Brendan, your thoughts on bracketology with a month away?
Yeah, this tournament this year could probably be – I know every tournament is unpredictable, but this has just the potential for so much chaos. Other than Gonzaga, there might be only one number one seed in the Final Four this year, because like every other one seed has the potential to go down. Not in the first round. I mean, maybe we saw it happen now, but early second round, Sweet 16. This bracket, I'm just looking. There's so many solid programs that you don't really hear about. What is Alabama going to do? And Oklahoma, like two football schools that we've been talking about, like all of a sudden getting red hot in basketball. Or Cleveland State, do they have a chance to make a Cinderella run? And you have to consider who's the Cinderella team going to be this year. Jacob touched on the Big Ten. There's 14 teams in the Big Ten Conference, so there could be 12 of them making the tournament. Like, that is just how good that whole conference is this year, which is crazy. Trying to just look at who's going to be the number one seeds. I think Baylor and Gonzaga are locks, but then Villanova is still in contention to grab that one seed in Region 4 out of the Big East. Houston and Texas Tech, don't count them out still for that number one seed in Region 3. Texas Tech is a very underrated basketball program right now. I know they just lost to West Virginia last night, but they made the national championship just a couple years ago. I think the last national championship that we had against Virginia. So they're still in contention. They're playing really good basketball. Just a ton of chaos going on right now. And I'm looking – and another thing is that's very interesting. Other than Kansas and North Carolina, I mean, there's a chance that I saw, like, in the top 25 right now. Kansas is not ranked. North Carolina, Duke, UCLA, Kentucky, they're all not ranked. So there's a very slim chance that all of them are going to make the tournament this year. There's a chance that only like one or two are going to make the tournament, which is just showing the landscape of college basketball. I've been saying it time and time again. It's changing. Like, those blue bloods are not dominant programs anymore, and you're seeing teams like Gonzaga and teams from the Big Ten and Baylor really take over all of college basketball. It's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, you kind of touched on my the biggest thing that caught my eye there, Brendan. Kansas a 6 seed and North Carolina a 10 seed right now. Duke and Kentucky not even being in it at all. It's weird seeing a bracket without Duke or Kentucky, and it's weird seeing a bracket where North Carolina is not the higher seed in the first round matchup. But that's, like you said, how things are changing. And the 9 Big Ten teams, we all talked about all year long, the Big Ten, one of the best conferences in basketball, if not the best right now, and they do lead the pack with 9 teams in this round of bracketology. So, like you said, we could see more depending on the Big Ten tournament goes. If one of those teams gets a couple wins, you might see double-digit teams from the Big Ten making the bracket. Other than that, not very shocked at what I see here. Obviously, a lot of these teams we kind of expected to see. But it's going to be interesting to see how this last month plays out. 2 more weeks of regular season, and then we start getting into conference tournaments, and we know how crazy conference tournaments can get. So it's going to be an exciting final month of college basketball. But we'll move on to the pros now in the sport of basketball, as we have an MVP update posted today. They posted what voting looks like as far as the MVP goes right now. Right now, the current MVP standings in the NBA go LeBron James with 760 total points and 53 first-place votes. Embiid, 665 total points with 23 first-place votes. And Jokic is third with 596 total points and 18 first-place votes. And then rounding out the top 10 goes Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, Steph Curry, Paul George, Luka Doncic, and Jason Tatum. Jacob, I'll start with you. Thoughts on the current standings? Is there any surprises? Did you kind of figure that'd be the top 3, even if it's not the correct order? But who would be your MVP right now is the question as well.
Yeah, I think the top 3 is perfectly like how I thought it was going to be too. No offense to Kevin Durant, because he can definitely maybe be considered top 3, but I think that Jokic, LeBron, and Embiid are all playing better than Durant at this moment in time. So they got the top 3 right in that sense. but I'm going to go ahead and say it. It might not be a popular opinion amongst the group, but I don't think that the top three is in the correct order right now. And it's not a knock on LeBron at all, because I definitely think he's having an MVP caliber season. We've just seen it happen before where he doesn't end up winning the MVP in the end because people really just underappreciate his value and just what he brings to the game of basketball. But right now, I'm going to say that my MVP at this very moment in time would have to be Joel Embiid. And it's because he's having a career year. He's averaging almost 30 points a game. He's averaging 11 rebounds. We don't even have his defensive stats on here, too. He might not get as many blocks as some of the other centers in the league, but his ability to alter shots in the paint, that can't go underappreciated, too. I just feel like Joel Embiid has made such an unexpected jump, and that has a large part to do with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers has really transcended his game ever since he's come to Philadelphia this season. But Joel's got the 76ers as the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, which I would have never thought we would have been saying that 25 games into the season, that the Sixers would be better than teams like the Bucks or the Nets or anybody like that. So really what he's done is just great. LeBron, too. LeBron definitely is going to get a lot of love, and he definitely should. But I also feel if Jokic's record was not 12-11, I think he'd be closer to LeBron for that second spot, because Jokic at one point, about 15 games into the season, was averaging a triple-double. And so he's still averaging close to a triple-double right now. It's just his team is barely above 500. So really, to me, right now, it's just a Joel Embiid, LeBron James race. Jokic can get back in it if his team starts to play better. But Embiid has got the slight edge for me right now just because those near 30-11 numbers, those are just crazy to me. And he's not running away with it, but at this very moment, I would say that he has it.
All right, I like it. Riley, welcome to the show. Your thoughts on the current MVP standings and who's your MVP right now?
I think that most years LeBron James should definitely be the MVP, but he's LeBron James, so typically they're going to choose somebody else. But if you're looking at player efficiency rating, which is something that I take pretty strongly, I think that's a pretty good metric of how you're really impacting your team. Joel Embiid has the second highest player efficiency rating in the NBA, and if you take him off of the 76ers today, they aren't competitive at all, in my opinion. I don't think that they're nearly the caliber of team that they are. If you take LeBron off the Lakers are still going to play some pretty good ball. Anthony Davis is a great player. I think that he can carry a team better than Ben Simmons. So if you're looking at the most valuable player to their team and in the league, I would have to agree with Jacob. I think Joel Embiid's really not a bad take. But my number two would be LeBron, considering the performance of his team and the metric, the absolute impact that he has, followed by Jokic at three.
Like it a lot. Brendan, your thoughts on the standings and who's your MVP right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is something where I just have a hard time every year. I know both Jacob and Riley mentioned it, that every year it feels like LeBron should be the MVP. And I'm sticking to that. I don't know how you don't take him to be the MVP with Embiid. You take him off Philadelphia. Philadelphia is not contenders. I get what Riley's saying, but even still, I don't think the Lakers are the same team without LeBron on the floor. They're not like a number one or number two seed without LeBron on the floor. So just for that, I'm taking LeBron. He's having another stellar season, like he always does. I just have a hard time not picking him. I know that's like not a very hot take, but I'm going with LeBron easily. I know he hasn't like gotten one in a long time. I like Riley said, like he's LeBron. They have to choose someone other than him every year. But I think he's due. I think he needs another one just to add to his case. So I think this year he's going to get another MVP.
I agree that LeBron and Embiid are my top two. When you talk about top two stats, it's definitely Jokic and Doncic. He's ninth in voting, but when you're looking at 28-9-9 as your stat line, and the only reason he's down there, 11-14 record definitely, and then same with Jokic, 12-11, he'd be higher, but his team's barely over 500, barely in the playoffs. Embiid and James, you look at them, they're putting up the numbers, and their teams are 19-6, 18-7, leading in the conference. So they're definitely my top two. It's a toss-up for me right now. I get what all three of you said, and I think they're all great points. But right now, I'm probably taking LeBron just because the feat that he's doing it at, the fact that he's 37 years old and putting up these kind of numbers and is still the leader on that team, just blows my mind. And it'd be a shame for him not to get at least one more MVP, considering he's done this for how many years. And at that point, I think a guy, and don't get me wrong, Embiid's having a great season, and if LeBron falls off or Embiid continues it, I could definitely take the case on, like last year, I was really upset that Giannis won MVP, because I thought LeBron deserved it. This year, if LeBron didn't win and Embiid won, I wouldn't be mad, and that's what I'm saying. I could see either winning, and I would be okay with either winning, but right now, personally, I'm taking LeBron just because the age he's doing this at still blows my mind. Him and Tom Brady are different breeds when it comes to human beings, and for them both to be doing it at such an old age blows my mind. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. But yeah, right now I'm taking LeBron a little bit over. I wouldn't say 53-23 first place votes is very fair to Embiid. I think it definitely should be closer than that, but I'm taking LeBron. And whoever the guys that gave Paul George a first place MVP vote probably shouldn't have a job. But that's just me. So there was just announced that we are having an All-Star game this year. In 2021, we will have an NBA All-Star, and after the first wave of voting, Kevin Durant and LeBron James are the Eastern and Western Conference leaders. They'll be the team captains. And what we're going to do here on the show today is we're going to pick the 12 players we think belong from the Eastern Conference, the 12 players we believe belong from the Western Conference, and who the 5 players that would be starters from each conference would be. Obviously, we're not going to say, okay, KD's going to pick this person and LeBron's going to pick this person. You're just doing who the top 12 in the East is for you, who the top 12 in the West for you, and who the 5 starters will be from each conference. Jacob, I'll start with you again. Who are your Eastern and Western All-Stars?
So for my Eastern Conference, my starters, I got James Harden. Even though he was in the West to begin the season, he's averaging 24 points, 11 assists. He's definitely a starter in my mind. The second guard, I was stuck between Jaylen Brown, who's having an absolute breakout season, or the leading scorer in the NBA, Bradley Beal. But I'm going to go leading scorer in the NBA here. Bradley Beal is my second starting guard. And then as far as forwards go, I think it's a no-brainer. Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they've been the 2 best forwards in the Eastern Conference this year. And then at center, Joel Embiid, my MVP. He's definitely the starter there. And then reserves, Jaylen Brown, breakout season, just absolutely phenomenal. Kyrie, despite missing a lot of games, I'm definitely going to put him still as an all-star right now. Bam Adebayo, even though the Heat are kind of up and down, he's having a much better year than he had last year, and last year was an all-star season for him. So I'm going to put Bam in my all-star team right now. Chris Middleton, he continues to shoot the lights out. He definitely deserves an all-star nod as well. And Jason Tatum for sure, too. Definitely an all-star nod there for him. These last 2, I think that they can go either way from a bunch of guys in the Eastern Conference, because there's been a lot of good players this year coming out of the East. But I'm going to say right now, one of my last 2 spots, Trae Young, he shot horribly this year, like not very good, but he's averaging 9 assists a game. He's averaging upwards of 27 points per game. So he deserves to be in there, especially with the Hawks in the playoffs. And my last one, I'm going to go with Gordon Hayward. And it's just because the Hornets are a lot better than what we thought they were. He's having a great season, one of the best in his career. So I definitely think he deserves that nod. But I also put on my list, too, the first 3 guys that I can also see making it that I don't have on my list right now. And it would be Domantas Sabonis, because he's been good for the Pacers this year. Vucevic, I would have put him in there if the Magic weren't as bad as they are, but he could potentially be in there as well. And even Zach LaVine, who knows? Maybe he'll sneak in with his scoring. I feel bad for him because he's on a horrible Bulls team and he doesn't get a lot of credit. But right now he's not an all-star for me. And then out in the West, I would say my starting guards, I got Stephen Curry and Luka Doncic. That was pretty easy there. And then easy, really, all the starters here in the Western Conference. LeBron and Kawhi at the forwards, and then Jokic at the center. And then my reserves, Damian Lillard's having another great season like how he always does. Paul George, he's definitely an all-star as well, and Anthony Davis too. And then these last 4, I think if they can go a lot of different ways, but right now I'm going to go Brandon Ingram. He's having just as good, if not a better season than he did last year, and he won Most Improved Player, and he was an All-Star last year. I know New Orleans isn't very good this year, but his work should not go unnoticed. Devin Booker, too. He's been the best player on the Suns this year. Chris Paul's been a great leader, but Booker's been that scorer and everything, so I'm going Booker here for his second All-Star nod. Donovan Mitchell, he's been one of the best players. Well, he has been the best offensive player, speaking for the Jazz, and the Jazz are one of the best teams in the NBA. So you got to throw Donovan in there. And my last spot, I was very torn. I didn't know who to pick because it's just so many good guys in the Western Conference. But I'm going to go right now because this team is surging. De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is having a breakout year for the Kings right now. I just think that he's a great leader and everything on that Kings team. He's a big reason why they're successful, him and the rookie Tyrese Halliburton. So I'm going to put him in there as my last spot. But the other three guys that should receive consideration, DeMar DeRozan, because the Spurs are a lot better than we all thought they would be. They're like fifth in the West right now. It's crazy to think that they're that good, and he's a big reason why. Rudy Gobert, he's the best defensive player in the NBA, and he's on one of the best teams in the NBA, so he should get some credit. And this guy really wanted to put him on, but I just couldn't put him on over De'Aaron Fox. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's making the Thunder somewhat competitive, even though they don't even want to be competitive. So he could potentially make the All-Star team too, but I'm just excited to see how this all plays out.
Love it. I love it. A lot of good picks there, Jacob. Brendan, we'll move on to you. Your Eastern and Western All-Stars. Who's representing the two conferences?
All right, so I'll start with the East here. My starting five, I'll go Joel Embiid at the center position. Then I got Kevin Durant and Giannis at the forwards. And then two guys having stellar seasons, Bradley Beal and Jaylen Brown. I'm going to throw them in at the guards in the starting five. Then the bench, I've got Jimmy Butler from Miami, James Harden from Brooklyn, Jason Tatum from Boston, Kyrie Irving from Brooklyn. Got it. I'm throwing in. I think it's a stretch, but I'm throwing in Colin Sexton from Cleveland. I think he finally gets that All-Star nod. He's having his best season as a Cavalier, so he'll get the nod. Domantas Sabonis from Indiana, and then I'll throw in Trae Young. All-Star game is in Atlanta, so have the hometown guy represent for the Hawks. Over in the West, starting five, I have Nikola Jokic at center, LeBron at forward, Anthony Davis at forward, and then Damian Lillard and Donovan Mitchell, the two guards. I know, yep. For the bench, I'll throw in Kawhi Leonard, Paul
Just
George.
Throw in Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard.
I know. Put in Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Luka Doncic, Devin Booker. I'm honestly loving the way Booker's playing this year. I think he's my most favorite. The most favorite exciting young guy to watch right now. Steph Curry, and then Zion Williamson and Chris Paul to round it out for the West.
I like it a lot. A lot of good names. Riley, who are your Eastern and Western All-Stars?
I think the starters in each conference are pretty consistent across the board. I mean, it's pretty easy to pick the top five players in each position, in my opinion. So in the East, I've got Embiid, Giannis, KD, Bradley Beal, and James Harden as my starters. And James Harden is the one that you might be able to move out of the starting lineup a little bit, maybe Bradley Beal too. But since going to the Nets and, he started the season out in Houston, he is leading the league in assists. Jacob mentioned it earlier. So he's proving that he's more than just that scoring dominant guard. And I think that he's proven that he is really a top two guard in that Eastern Conference. And then looking at the bench, this is where I start to stray. I tried to pick a few players from each position, whether that's center, forward, or guard positions, just to keep that variety there. So I've got Sexton at one of the reserve spots. I've got Levine/Young. I think that either of those guys are interchangeable based on the fan vote. I think that's going to determine who's really going to be in this All-Star game. I've got Jaylen Brown as well, Jason Tatum. I've got Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and then sleeper pick. I chose DeAndre Drummond. I think that Andre Drummond. Sorry, I chose Andre Drummond. I mean, his PR is 27th in the NBA, so he certainly has the specs to make this team. He's a great scorer, great rebounder, and his defensive presence is felt. I think that impact on the defensive side of the floor can't be quantified as easily as some of the offensive impacts that guys can have. So he is edging out Sabonis. Sabonis is my guy on the cusp there. And then looking at the West, same thing. I've got Jokic, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, and Luka Doncic as my starting five. And then looking at my reserves, I've got Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Paul George, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson. That's a name that nobody's heard, but I really do think that the impact he has on the floor is what opens up Brandon Ingram's game a little bit. And then my final guy, who's that reserve center, is Christian Wood. I think Christian Wood's just had a knockout season. He's someone that really needs to be respected and talked about here. He's certainly in that all-star conversation to me. And my final guy on the cusp of being in the all-star game is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Love the picks. You guys all made great picks. A lot of the guys on your list are obviously on mine. So I'll start with my Eastern Conference. Embiid at the center, forwards Giannis and KD, and then my guards Bradley Beal and Kyrie Irving. I think the fan vote's going to get Kyrie into that starting spot, and I also think since he has come back from his little hiatus, he has been one of the most dominant players in the league. And then my reserves in order of how I think voting should go. Jaylen Brown, my first reserve, 2 Jason Tatum, so the 2 Celtic boys, just not making the starting lineup, but the top 2 reserves as far as vote getting. Then I have Harden 3, Bam Adebayo, Chris Middleton, and then my last 2 kind of sleeper picks. Julius Randle, I think he's been playing out of his mind for the Knicks, a big part of them being where they're at as far as seeding goes right now. Obviously very early in the season, but he's had a great year thus far. And then I have Colin Sexton from Cleveland rounding out the Eastern Conference. I think one Cav's going to get there, and it's either going to be Drummond or Sexton, but I give Sexton the edge there just because the scoring machine he can be and has been this season. For the West, Jokic at the center, LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard are my forwards, and then Luka and Steph Curry are my guards. Brendan, I love the switch up, but I'm going with the 2 guys that everybody's picking for the guard position.
Am I the only one that didn't put Curry in the starting 5?
You're the only one that didn't put Curry and Doncic in, yeah.
No, I put Jokic in.
No, Doncic. Luka.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But don't worry, I have Lillard and Mitchell.
Curry doesn't deserve to be in there. So
I have Lillard and Mitchell both in my reserves. Paul George and Anthony Davis as well. And then my last 3, Devin Booker, Brandon Ingram, and Riley. I'm so glad you said Christian Wood because I was torn between Christian Wood and Chris Paul, but I gave Christian Wood the edge just because I think he is that dynamic player in Houston right now, and he's been playing lights out of his mind. A whole new player, almost breaking onto superstardom here this year, and he's my last All-Star.
He's a game changer, man. I can't believe that Detroit let him walk. I mean, he put up some monster numbers at the end of last season, and people were wondering if it was kind of a fluke, and he's transitioned to a completely different offense, completely different coach, completely different scheme, and hasn't missed a beat. So that just shows you how mismanaged he was at the beginning of his career in Detroit.
And then for the guys I have just missing it, I have Trae Young, Jimmy Butler, and Derrick Rose in the Eastern Conference. And then in the West, I have Chris Paul just missing out, Zion Williamson. They're the 2 that I have just missing out in the West. But obviously, nothing we just said is going to happen. It's the fan vote, and Klay Thompson, he has 100,000 votes right now. I mean, to be fair, he hasn't missed a shot all season, but still, or turned over the ball. Pretty stellar as far as holding on to the ball. But anything can happen, you know that, and I think we all know that. But if one thing's certain, it looks like the starting lineups are going to be pretty close to what we said. Obviously, me throwing Irving in there could change, or Harden could be out. In the West, it's pretty set. I think Jacob, Riley, and I have a good beat on what the West can look like. Sorry, Brendan. But no, I could see Dame over Steph, but I just don't see Luka on the bench. But I could definitely see Dame making the starting lineup. But that will do it for the NBA as we move on to our final subject, which is the NFL. And obviously, the two big things we're going to talk about is the NFL awards and the Super Bowl. So we'll start with the awards. Aaron Rodgers wins his third MVP trophy. Offensive Player of the Year goes to Derrick Henry. Defensive Player of the Year, Aaron Donald. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chase Young. Comeback Player of the Year, I don't think any of us are going to argue this one, Alex Smith. And then Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski. Brendan, I'll start with you. Would you have changed any of these?
To be honest, no. I agree with everything that the NFL voted on here. MVP Aaron Rodgers just had his best season in a very, very long time, and he just ran into the GOAT in the playoffs. If it weren't for playing Tom Brady, we would have gotten to another Super Bowl. I mean, his MVP case even larger, but still, I love that pick. Aaron Donald, I mean, the Defensive Player of the Year, I think, was a toss-up one, but Aaron Donald was definitely very deserving. Justin Herbert is a guy on the rise, and as soon as going to lead the Chargers to a playoff run here at some point. So, Rookie of the Year for sure. And then, Chase Young, Alex Smith, pretty much set. And then Kevin Stefanski, how can you not vote for the coach who took the Cleveland Browns of all teams to the playoffs, win a game when he wasn't even there in the playoffs, and then almost beat the Chiefs? I don't know how you can't vote for him. So that should have been unanimous. And I think the one category that wasn't unanimous but should have been was Alex Smith. I heard there was one writer who did not pick Alex Smith for Comeback Player of the Year. I just want to know who that douchebag is and have a talk with them. How can you not vote for Alex Smith? So,
who would you vote for?
I don't know.
The outstanding vote was for Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Oh. He looked good in the playoffs. He threw more picks to Cleveland in that game than he did his whole career prior to that moment. Oh man, Riley, your thoughts on the awards? Would you have changed any of these?
I think these awards are really good. I think Aaron Rodgers proved that he was the most valuable player in the league this year. Take Aaron Rodgers away from that offense, and I don't think that they're nearly as good. And then looking at Derrick Henry, I mean, over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, one of only 8 players to ever do it. That's a huge accomplishment. That has to be resulting in an Offensive Player of the Year. And the only one that I could really debate a little bit is Offensive Rookie of the Year, and that's only to a certain point of the season. So Justin Herbert, he came out and really proved that he was worth the draft pick that the Chargers took him at. And he did set himself apart from some people, but Justin Jefferson also had an excellent rookie season. I'd almost like to see Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, because both of those guys were lights out and impact players. But other than that, everything else on the money. I think that the NFL really nailed their awards this year. And I'd really love to see the Comeback Player of the Year award named after Alex Smith. What an inspiring football story.
Yeah.
That was 100% correct. And the only shame in that, like Brennan said, was it not being unanimous. Alex Smith really was something special.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a picture of his leg, and you're just like, that man's never playing football again. But he comes back and goes 5-0 as a starter, gets Washington to the playoffs. Unfortunate he couldn't play in the playoffs, but Heineke definitely stepped up and played very well for him. But when you're playing Tom Brady, it's tough,
Yeah, and I think Alex Smith is a guy who's just proven through this whole process, not only is he comeback player of the year, but he's the comeback player of the century. You know what I mean? There's no one that has been able to accomplish what he did in terms of getting back to the field, and he's going to stay in NFL circles for the rest of his life because of the determination that he showed. He's the ultimate teammate and the ultimate example to anyone wanting to compete.
Yeah, and the fact that Washington was 2-9 without him, that's not a playoff team. So, Jacob, your thoughts on these awards? Would you have changed any of them?
I mean, like how we said about Alex Smith, I definitely wouldn't change that one at all. I mean, he almost lost his leg, for crying out loud. It's just crazy to think of his story. He almost lost his leg. He could have potentially even lost his life, and then he ends up coming back and obviously leading the Washington football team to the playoffs. So that's definitely a good thing right there. I mainly agree with every single one. Offensive Player of the Year, to me, it's just unfortunate for Travis Kelce because he had a historic year for tight ends. It's just Derrick Henry clearly did deserve the award because, like how Riley said, one of the 8 players to really just go over 2,000 rushing yards. But it's just a shame to see Travis Kelce, in a way, just have a historic season for tight ends and he doesn't win the award. But yet again, totally understandable that Derrick Henry wins. Defensive Player of the Year, I think I would have considered Xavier Howard a little bit more because we talked weeks ago how impressive it is to really have like 10 interceptions like Xavier Howard did. So I think Xavier Howard should have maybe gotten a little bit more love, but I still don't really see an issue with giving Aaron Donald it too because he's a game changer. And like how Riley said, Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's just unfortunate again. Justin Jefferson had a historic year for wide receivers, but to me it was just clear Justin Herbert ran away with this thing because he plays the most important position you could argue maybe in all of sports potentially, and he broke every single rookie record, it seemed like, with that. So Justin Herbert, to me, ran away with that. But really, it was just unfortunate that guys like Travis Kelce, who had a historic year, and a guy like Justin Jefferson, who had a historic rookie season, didn't get recognition. But the guys that won, they totally deserve all the awards.
Yeah, I agree. I think they got it right in every aspect. I love the Steelers fans that say, oh, TJ Watt should have been Defensive Player of the Year. He played one less game than Donald, had better stats. Donald's triple team rate is double anyone else in the NFL. And TJ Watt was catching single teams against the Browns. I mean, the level of respect alone gives him Defensive Player of the Year. The NFL knows how dangerous Aaron Donald is, and you dedicate 3 of your 5 offensive linemen a lot of the time to guard this guy. And he still puts up top 3 numbers in every defensive stat. How do you not give it to the guy? So I thought it was a no-brainer. Obviously, living in Northeast Ohio, a lot of the Steelers fans, they like to talk their stuff, and they're going to try to talk all that. But it's done and over with. The guy that deserved it won it. And then I agree, 2,000 yards, really impressive. Aaron Rodgers, third ring. Don't even have 2 yet, but 3rd MVP trophy. Kudos to you. And then I agree with the Rookies of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year. I agree with Riley. It should be named after him. And then Kevin Stefanski. Brennan said it the best. Leads the Browns to the playoffs and wins a game in his basement. He's obviously the Coach of the Year. So that'll take us now to the last topic, which is the Super Bowl. And man, was it a snooze fest. It was a laugher. The best part of my night was eating Cane's chicken fingers while watching it. But Tampa Bay defeats Kansas City 31-9 in Super Bowl 55. Tom Brady wins his 7th ring and 5th Super Bowl MVP and went through a 12-pack of something today. Actually, it was avocado tequila, if you didn't see his tweet. Spelled everything wrong. Patrick Mahomes runs for a total of 497 yards in this game between the snap of the ball and the release of the pass. Jacob, I'll start with you. Thoughts on the game, and is Tom Brady the solidified GOAT?
It was incredibly boring to watch. I just could not stand watching it. I was really just anticipating an amazing game, and that's the exact opposite that we got. But really, Tom Brady, I mean, if you don't think he's the GOAT after this playoff run, not even just this game, he took out Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes all in order, just like that.
And Heineke.
So, I mean, and Heineke. Heineke might be the best one of them all, honestly. Yeah. I mean, he takes all these guys out, and not to mention Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers were both on the road, too. So, I mean, if you don't think he's the GOAT after this run, you just got to stop watching football, I would say, because to me, he's the GOAT now. Like, I already thought he was the GOAT, but this just even further solidified it. And I know Brendan talked about this would hurt Mahomes' legacy last week. This is definitely going to hurt Mahomes' legacy, just the way that he lost, too. I mean, you can't even score a touchdown against him. And I will say this, the Buccaneers defense, they definitely were a big reason why they won the game, but that Chiefs offensive line was totally beat up. Those wide receivers and tight ends, they were not helping Patrick Mahomes at all. I was getting so frustrated for him because he's making these plays that are just unreal, how he's able to escape all these sacks. Because that's the thing. We can all agree that he got pressured a lot, but it's not like he got sacked like 8 or 10 times.
The 497 yards. The dude ran a half marathon.
Crazy. Yeah. And like he's not getting sacked on any
No, he
plays,
didn't.
which is just incredible.
He
And
threw a
he's
pass.
passes on the money.
He threw a pass on target where his head was below his feet.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's a video game pass before graphics were great. I mean, I don't think this. I'm not making excuses, but that line definitely was not there for Mahomes. Now, this does hurt in the sense that you lost. You didn't score a touchdown, and you lost by 22. But Mahomes had no help in this game, and guys like Kelsey and Hill were even dropping passes. Guys who were sure hands all season long.
Yeah, for sure. I don't remember what quarter it was, but I know there was one play where Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it was basically every quarter, every single play, but he got rid of like Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett. All these guys are diving in on him, and he just gets drilled. He throws up to Tyreek Hill, hits him right in the hands, and he just drops it. And it was just so frustrating to watch. But also on the Buccaneers for the offensive side, really, I mean, I thought we were watching Super Bowl 45 rather than 55, seeing like Tom Brady and Gronk absolutely dominate the game the way that they did. And I'm just going to say one thing that's not being talked about at all. I need to give so much credit where credit is due to guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for the sacrifices they made this season to really make this thing work, because they were the guys that were here last year. And if you think about the guys that dominated this game, it was Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown scored a touchdown. None of these guys were on the roster last year, but Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they were really quiet in the game, but they were okay with it because at the end of the day, they just want to win a ring. And I just think that shows a lot about their character, shows a lot about the culture that Bruce Arians built in Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay definitely deserved this. I thought they were going to make the Super Bowl. They were my picks before the playoffs even started to make the Super Bowl, but I never would have thought they would have beat the Chiefs. But hats off to them. They played basically a perfect game in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and touching on what you said about Mike Evans already talked to Arians and said that he would take a pay cut to run it back. So that goes to show even more how much he cares about being with this team and getting him back there. Riley, your thoughts on Super Bowl 55? Is Brady the GOAT?
I think 100%. Tom Brady, whenever the rise, so does Tom Brady. He takes his game up to another level, and he's proven that it wasn't just the system that made him successful. It's the player, too. He really went into Tampa Bay. He changed that culture. It wasn't just him alone. Bruce Arians had a lot to do with that. But, I mean, what a great player. What an amazing story after so long, and prove that he had it. He had what it takes to get it done. But unfortunately, I thought it was a really boring Super Bowl. I didn't think that it was super entertaining to watch. But sometimes when Tom Brady gets to work, that's just how it is. The other teams don't even have a chance. And in terms of Patrick Mahomes running around, he looked good running 497 yards, especially with turf toe. So he's going to need surgery on that. It's crazy to me that he was running around out there with a turf toe requiring surgery.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, boring Super Bowl. But, hey, not a super unexpected result. Tom Brady gets it done once again, and Gronk was right there with him. I thought arguably Gronk could have been the game's MVP. 6 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. Come on, what a vintage performance.
Yeah.
Really just great to see Brady get it done. Great to see Gronk. Great to see all those guys in Tampa Bay who had to suffer so long with Jameis Winston as their quarterback get the chance to really show how good of a football team they are. So overall, happy for the Bucs. What a great organization to win their second Super Bowl. And Tom Brady, GOAT confirmed.
Love it. Brendan, your thoughts on this game, and is Brady the GOAT?
So, yeah, the game was, like Jacob and Riley said, pretty disappointing. Just as disappointing at Super Bowl 53 2 years ago with the Patriots and Rams. That game, zero offense. Tonight, I mean, this year, what should have been a really high-flying offense game where it was like should have been a shootout. We did not get that. I think that's the only game Pat Mahomes has ever played in the NFL where he has not gotten into the end zone. So I just felt bad for him the whole night because he just was not getting any help. Great coverage from the defensive secondary at Tampa Bay covering their guys. And like Jacob said, that offensive line not helping Mahomes at all. But just still the grit and effort that he put into that game really impressed me. Just the sidearm throws, falling in the ground like he was a shortstop, and hitting his guys in the helmet, in the face mask, like they were catchable balls, putting them where they should have been. His guys just weren't catching them. So I don't know how much blame you put on Pat Mahomes for that performance. But at the end of the day, it is a Super Bowl. Really no excuses. Just could not get the job done. For Tom Brady and Tampa Bay, he's like 43 years old and getting into it with Tyrann Mathieu. That was the most exciting part of the Super Bowl. Like, let's just be real. Like,
I'm so glad you said that.
That was fantastic to see, and Tyrann Mathieu just getting his butt sat down, and just getting shut up by Grandpa. As far as the GOAT status goes, I guess he's the GOAT.
Oh my goodness!
But just there's so, if you look at his past Super Bowls, like, has he been dominant at all? Like, if you take a look at past Super Bowls, what was that, Will?
He has 5 Super Bowl MVPs.
But let's look at this here. Like, in the Super Bowl against Seattle, they lose that game if Russell Wilson doesn't throw a pick.
But he took it down the field right before that drive and scored. That's on the defense, not him.
Like,
the defense put them in that position to let them on the goal line. Pete Carroll did blow that game, though, yes.
He loses to Nick Foles, barely beats L.A. If it's not for Adam Vinatieri in the first 2 Super Bowls, he doesn't win either of those. By the way, something that's going unnoticed is that he's now beaten Andy Reid twice in Super Bowls. But like, and then he loses to Eli Manning. Like, he can't complete the 17-0 the undefeated season.
Hall of Fame quarterback.
You got to be Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Will. But all that being said, I still think he's the GOAT. It's just that, like, I'm not super impressed with Tom Brady as a quarterback. Like, look at the Green Bay game this year. 3 interceptions. He was putting his team in a position to lose if it's not for Aaron Rodgers. Like, just choking.
He's top 2 in every stat, about to be number 1 next season.
I'm just not impressed. Like, I don't think he's the most dominant quarterback of all time.
He has more rings than every NFL franchise.
Still, I'm not. I was talking about this with a guy I was watching the game with. Like, if between Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady, if I had to pick who's on my football team, I'm picking Pat Mahomes. There's no way I'm picking Tom Brady. Pat Mahomes is much more athletic.
From a physical standpoint, I get it. From a physical standpoint, Tom's the greatest to ever do it, man. Let me count how many teams have 7 Super Bowl wins on my hands. Let me count how many quarterbacks have 7 Super Bowl wins on my hands. Oh, come on.
I saw the graphic, Riley. I saw the graphic CBS put up. I'm just saying that there's been instances in his career where he has just not been clutch enough. Sometimes way overrated.
I just don't know
he's clutch
how
enough to win 7 Super Bowls, though.
Exactly. Like, he won 7. Like, he's not going to be clutch every single time. And, like, you added how he lost to the Eagles. He threw for 500 yards in that game. Like, that's not his fault at all. Right?
One second. Brendan, let me ask you a question.
Still lost to Nick Foles, of all people.
Brendan.
Though, if he throws for 500 yards in the game. Like,
Nick Foles was a great quarterback. Nick Foles played better football as a quarterback than almost any other quarterback.
What is he doing now? He's not winning.
Quarterback in that stretch. Every stretch, Foles, it's wrong to hate on him because that was a fantastic stretch of some playoff games that he had.
Brendan, can I ask you a question?
I'm not hating on Nick Foles.
Brendan, can I ask you a question?
What sarcastic question are you going to ask?
Who's your GOAT of basketball?
All right, I know what you're trying to get at here. Well,
who's your GOAT?
LeBron James.
And he's 4-6. Tom Brady's 7-3. I agree with you. LeBron James.
I'm not saying Tom Brady's not the GOAT. Will, I have to repeat myself here. I'm not saying Tom Brady's not the GOAT. I'm just saying he's a little overrated to be considered the most dominant quarterback of all time.
But what if he takes over every stat next year in first place in every stat? Has 7 rings, could get an 8th. He also has more NFC playoff wins than Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. NFC playoff wins against an NFC playoff team. He has 9. Rodgers and Brees both have 8. The stats are there to back him up.
I'm just saying I'm not impressed with him.
Okay.
Like, look what he did against Tennessee last year. How does the greatest of all time...
Belichick was holding him back.
Oh, so now you're blaming it on Belichick.
I'm kidding. That was just one of my sarcastic comments.
I guess, Brendan, I guess I can kind of understand where you're coming from in the argument, but the way that I look at it is Tom Brady has overcome more shortcomings with his team to win than his team has overcome Tom Brady's shortcomings to win. So Tom Brady has functioned with a team that at points is not though, but he's been able to take them to the cusp of being the most talented or the best team in the NFL. You have to look at it like Patrick Mahomes. He definitely elevates his team to another level. Tom Brady does the same thing.
Right, yeah, no, I agree. Just like with what LeBron does, and he did that with Tampa Bay this year. Like, give him so much credit. Like, the first season with a whole new team, a new head coach. But I'll give Arians a lot of credit this year. He said that he just let Tom Brady coach this year a few times. Like, to put your ego aside and just understand who your quarterback was. That is a heck of a coaching move by Bruce Arians.
So now, my take on the whole thing. I wrote down my top 5 things about this past Sunday, all right? Number 5, the Bud Light Avengers commercial. I don't know if you guys all saw that, where all the Bud Light characters came out. That was the 5th best thing that happened to me this Sunday. 4, seeing all the Cleveland Browns tweets. The Cleveland Browns would have done better tweets. That was the 4th best thing I saw this past Sunday. All the fans saying, oh, the Browns would have been competitive. The Browns would have won this game. That was my 4th best thing that's happened to me on Sunday. Number 3, Antoine Winfield. Peace sign to Tyreek Hill. Oh, loved it. Absolutely every moment of it. That was the 3rd. 2nd, Tom Brady trash talking with Tyrann Mathieu. Brendan, you mentioned it. And then winning, backing up the trash talk and going back for more. That was number 2. And then number 1, hot chicken, what combo you picking? Eating Canes while watching the Super Bowl was the number 1 thing that happened to me this past Sunday. And now, as the week goes on, a lot of great things surface today, such as Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi Trophy to another boat, Tom Brady being completely wasted on avocado tequila, and now Tom Brady seeing Antoine Winfield for the first time today and throwing up a peace sign while holding his daughter because Antoine Winfield did it to Tyreek Hill. This Super Bowl Yes, it was very boring to watch, but a lot of great things came of it. The celebration we all saw today was great, and there was a lot of fun stuff still to take away from the game, such as the trash talking, the peace signs, Twitter the whole night, and the commercials were kind of bland this year. Bad commercials, but there were a few that were very good. And I thought the Bud Light one hit home, obviously, with being a big Marvel fan. If the viewers could see my room, they'd know what I mean by big Marvel fan. But that was my top 5 takeaways from this past Sunday, or my top 5, whatever. Tom Brady's the GOAT. That's what I'm going to end on.
The weekend wasn't in your top 5?
I did like the performance. A lot of people didn't like that performance. I did like it. It wouldn't have made my top 5. It'd probably be in my top 10, but I liked it.
I liked it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Twitter really thrashed it. I thought it was one of the better performances. A lot of people were like, bring Bruno Mars back. Now I get it. Bruno Mars was a great halftime performance, but considering what we've had, especially in the last 10 years, I'd say The Weeknd's one of the top 3 or 4 in the last 10 years. But football now over. Off-season starts. Obviously, when big signings happen, we'll talk about them. Trades, we'll talk about them. But we probably won't have a big segment of football until about April when we do our mock draft here on RaiderZone. But now it is time for Last Call, where we pick on 2 big debates that I saw on Twitter today for some reason. I don't know why I saw these 2 debates on Twitter today. Of all things, you see them a lot, but I don't know why today, of all things, they were brought up. But which TV show is better and which comic group is better? We'll start the comic group. Jacob, I'll start with you. Marvel or DC? Pick right or you're fired.
I mean, how can you pick against Marvel, honestly, bro? Like,
you get to keep your job.
This is how I see it. Marvel, yeah, they've come out with some, like, questionable stuff, but their questionable stuff is better than DC's, like, good stuff, in my opinion. Like, DC will come out with something good, and then they'll come out with something horrible. Like, it's never consistently, like, good. And Marvel now, I mean, they've already ruled my movie watching, like, for years now, and now they're ruling my TV watching, too, because I'm already in love with WandaVision, and that's already, like, my favorite show I've ever watched. Like, I just love everything about Marvel. Like, Marvel's just perfect to me, honestly.
I love it. You get to keep commentating basketball on the weekends. Riley, Marvel or DC? Pick right, or you don't get to call football this year. I think
you said comic strips.
No, just like comic.
In terms of media entertainment, Marvel has.
I said comic, like
movies, TV. Marvel is ahead by a mile.
Okay.
But if you're looking at graphic novel speaking and like comic strip speaking, I think DC has that right in their Batman graphic novels.
I'm still going Marvel in the comics, but I can see what you're saying. The DC definitely made much better comics than they do movies. I mean, DC, you can get into the comics.
Especially if you get into the graphic novel territory.
Okay. The
graphic novel territory for some of the Batman stuff, pretty sick. I've only read one of them, but high quality content.
I love it. I'll let you call some games. I'll let you call some football games. Brendan, Friday, Saturday, you're slated to call the games play-by-play. Jacob moves up if you select wrong.
Well, I think I'm pretty safe here. I don't think I've read a single comic book, but I'm in love with Marvel movies and now streaming shows, not TV, streaming. They're just by far 1,000 miles ahead of DC. The only area I'll give DC credit in are the Batman movies. Those are really the only movies that DC has hit at least a triple on. I mean,
I'd give him a home run on the Joker.
The Joker was really good. But like the Wonder Woman movies are just not doing it for me. Justice League was pretty. They could have done so much. You compared the Justice League movie to the Avengers movies where everyone is together. like it's night and day, really. And then they have these characters like Shazam, just those are literally a joke. You take a look at the MCU, and just everyone is a hit. Like, I love every single MCU movie. And now, like Jacob said, bringing out these series like WandaVision, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, just like they're unbelievable movies. And Marvel just keeps on doing a phenomenal job.
Now, with that being said, I'm going to take DC on this question. So you all three are unfortunately canned. Now, I think it's pretty obvious for me that I'm going Marvel. I have basically every Marvel movie on Steelbook right here next to me. All the Spider-Mans, the Deadpools, all the MCU movies, Venom. The only two DC movies I have on Steelbook are The Dark Knight and The Joker, which respectfully deserve a Steelbook and deserve to be in my collection. But I agree, Marvel far and away. And Marvel is the kind of company where they release something and you're marking your calendar. I don't know if I'm the only one that's like, ooh, I marked it for WandaVision. Ooh, Loki's coming out in May. Mark that. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier in March. Mark that. Spider-Man 3 Untitled December. Mark that. DC releases a movie and I'm just like, cool. If I make time when it comes out and I'm reminded, maybe. But I'm not going to mark my calendar and go out of my way to buy tickets to the movie theater or a streaming service for DC. So I'm going Marvel as well. Now, TV show. I have a feeling I know what all three of you are going to select. Maybe not. We'll see. Brendan, I'll start with you. Friends or The Office?
Yeah, this is extremely hard for me. Just because both of them have a very different sense of humor to them. You take a look at the comedy that comes out of both. Very different. Vastly different. If you want quick witted humor comedy, that's The Office. If you're looking for a laugh track, that's Friends. That just kind of urges the humor, like that's really trying to make you laugh. That's Friends. But that being said, like they're both so good. If I have to pick one though, I think I know more quotes from The Office than I do Friends. So I'm going with The Office on this one, but only up until Michael Scott leaves. After that, I'll go and watch Friends. So, yeah.
All right. Riley, you gave a disgruntled look when he said this is tough for me, so I feel like you have a landslide victory between one of the two. Who are you choosing? I think you
watched a ton of Friends. I've seen like some episodes, but I'm a huge fan of like that. Think about it for a second, and then it hits you. Garbage can pun here. So really,
you're cutting in and out, Riley. You there?
70s show.
What'd you say? Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
No, you're okay. My internet connection is awful, but. Personally, my winner is not amongst these two. My winner is That 70s Show. I really enjoy watching that with my girlfriend. So
did you not watch either of these shows much?
My choice.
You didn't watch.
What was that?
You didn't watch either of these shows very much.
I know more about Office than I do about like, Friends or anything, but I'm not an avid fan. No.
Okay. I can respect that. That 70 Shows is a great pick as well. Another show that I love to watch. All right, Jacob, Friends of The Office. What are you choosing?
Yeah. It's not really close. It's The Office. I mean, I've watched Friends basically all the way through, too. And I've watched The Office probably like 3 or 4 times all the way through. I just love guys like Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute. And Jim is personally my favorite. I mean, you can't go wrong with Jim. He's just an amazing character. Friends, to me, it's funny, it really is, but after, like, the whole Monica and Chandler getting married thing, after that, for me, it personally went downhill after that. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't get into it as much. I felt like there was more, like, drama than comedy at times in it. But The Office, I always feel, is just, like, in your face, so funny. Like, you can see this happening in real life type of stuff. So I'm just going Office for that reason. I mean, nothing against Friends. It's a pretty good show, but The Office, to me, that's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I can watch that over and over and over again.
Now, I get what you're saying with Friends. It kind of did like turn more into drama, but The Office did the same thing in a sense, especially in season 9 with Jim and Pam. I'm not a fan of 8 and 9 for The Office seasons. They're all right. The last episode's great. But Friends kind of does the same thing. I've watched both of these shows probably 20 times all the way through. So if you're going to ask anybody this question, I'm the guy to ask. And it's really tough for me too. I can probably quote both of these shows. I can probably tell you a quote from every episode ever made from both these shows. That's just how much I've watched these shows. Billy and I played office trivia on the way to a couple of the football games last year. But I don't have any friends that really know Friends trivia like I do. So as far as relatability goes, I picked The Office just because I feel like it's easier to have a conversation about. More people have seen it. But if I had to say which one of these two is my overall favorite, my go-to, I'm saying Friends. I know it's probably not the popular pick, but I don't know why. I have it on DVD. I have Fresh Prince on DVD as well. Another great show. But I'm just a big 90s TV show fan, and I'm going to go Friends on this one. And I'm probably going to take a lot of slack if any of my friends from work hear this, because all we talk about is Office quotes. But you know what? I still love The Office. These are my top 2 favorite shows of all time. And that's why this debate's so hard for me. It seems like usually it's one way or the other because you only watched one show. But it's so hard for a guy that's seen every episode probably 20 times of these shows. It's so hard to pick, but I'm going Friends. But that does it for episode 14 of RaiderZone. For Riley Sullivan, Jacob Butar, Brendan Devaney, I'm Will Brianza. We thank you all again for listening. And don't forget to tune in this weekend for some more Purple Raiders basketball as the men look to stay undefeated and the women look to stay on a win streak.